Hi, Peter. Welcome, Jesse. Welcome. Thanks all for joining. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. All right, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining. For those that are on the Zoom and for those that are joining via YouTube, welcome to Manhattan Community Board 8's March Youth Education and Libraries Committee meeting. This is being held via Zoom, obviously. We have an exciting agenda today and a great guest speaker from the New York Public Library that we'll turn over to shortly. Excited to be talking about libraries in our neighborhoods and our community broadly and sort of New York City more broadly as well. But first, I'd love to turn it over to my co-chair, Rami Siegel, who would like to share some DOE updates. Rami has some great perspective as a New York City public high school student on the ground. And so I'll turn it over to Rami to share a few points before I introduce our guest speaker.
Yes, thank you so much everyone for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Jesse. So if you have been living under a rock, you might not have heard of this amazing news cycle that we've had the past month. So a lot has happened, including Chancellor Carranza's resignation. I think on behalf of the committee, I can say that we're sorry for his losses that he experienced due to COVID-19. and we really do express our condolences. That being said, Chancellor, we would like to congratulate Chancellor Porter for her new position as the Chancellor of the New York City Department of Education. Borough President Brewer had said that Porter is working on social workers in every school, which is something I think at least Taina, Peter, and I very wholeheartedly support, as well as other members of the board. And so I'm very pleased to say that. Middle and high school reopening have been going on. That's been big news. They've been pretty successful. My school's welcomed high school back Monday, and it's been going well, I'm happy to say. And the opt-in period is now open. So that's open through 4/7. So if you would like or know of a child that is registered for remote now and would like to go back to school, please fill out that DOE survey by the 7th if you'd like to go back to school. There's no timeline on when students that fill out that form will return to school. So it could be in a few weeks, it could be in a month, but there's really only 3 months of the calendar school year left. So I'd assume it's going to be in a timely manner. There has been a lot of changes to the gifted and talented program, and that was under Carranza and Porter. So that affects children born in 2016. So if you would like more information on that, look to the DOE website and any of their resources that they may have. So PSAL, they're returning, thank God. If you don't know, that's the Public School Athletic League, and they are a huge staple for children, for youth services as well as sports. So I'm very pleased that de Blasio had certified their return. So we're gonna see that over the next few months. A lot of outdoor sports too. So that's gonna be a new thing to plan for. So if you would like to get involved, reach out to your school's athletic director, gym teacher, probably after school coordinator. One of those people will have answers for you. De Blasio was in district actually 2 weeks ago or this past week. He visited the Julia Richmond campus to see school reopening. I think that was Monday actually. That being said, that was Talent Unlimited High School at Julia Richmond. I'm very concerned with Julia Richmond campus and the Blood Center proposal. We're going to keep that out of this committee, but if you would like to speak on the Julia Richmond issues, make sure to visit that land use committee and the zoning committee, which is next month, I believe. There were some issues with CUNY Law School, and I think this goes without saying, but we got to just make sure hate stays out of our education system, whether that be elementary, middle, high, or higher education. I'm deeply concerned about the CUNY Law School and what's been going on there. Last few things, the U.S. Secretary of Education, and Biden's pick got confirmed, which was great. That's $1 billion to Puerto Rico education. And Chuck Schumer says that New York City is getting money out of the new stimulus straight to the DOE, straight to New York City DOE, rather than funneling through the state and all the issues there. So that money's going to get to the schools rather than somewhere else that it's not, that someone feels that it's needed more. Last two things, summer youth employment is open. I believe that's the 23rd or the 24th. So if you would like to apply, definitely get in there. There's 70,000 jobs available this time. It's been expanded. I'm pleased to say that because last year at this time, we had a meeting where we were distressed about the lack of summer youth employment. And then the last thing is there was suspicious powder sent to a private school in our district, as well as 6 others. Hopefully NYPD can get to the bottom of this because this is really concerning and weird. But with that, that's my update.
Thanks, Remy. So I will, before I turn it over to Jesse, I encourage everyone to join us for our committee meeting in April, which will happen on Thursday, April 22nd. We have formally invited a senior member of the new Department of Education Chancellor's office, in hopes that we can get just some firsthand perspective directly from the new Chancellor Porter's office about both her vision in the semi-short amount of time left within Mayor de Blasio's tenure, but also her thoughts on how reopening is going in our district in particular, but citywide. So we hope you'll join us for that. So now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Jesse Moskowitz, who is the young adult librarian at the New York Public Library 67th Street branch here in our district and community board, District 8. Jesse has always been a great partner of the Youth Education and Libraries Committee, comes to our meetings often willingly when he's not a guest speaker, just has shown deeply how much he cares about young adults in our community and keeping them engaged. And so we're excited to have Jesse here to talk to us about what's going on at the New York Public Library, at his branch in particular, and how he sees the next few months going as we start reopening and as students continue to need resources, be it in person or remotely. So I'll turn it over to you, Jesse. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and big thank you to this committee, CB8. Thank you for arranging this. I'll specifically thank you for a program that you all actually helped me get started in a bit. So I'm the young adult librarian over at 67th Street between 1st and 2nd, and I'll talk about 4 broad categories that relates to New York Public Library. First of all, like where we are in like our reopening and like what that looks like, especially in regards to our community board. Some of the apps that are really useful that some people know about, some people don't know about, a lot of people are confused about, but it's just over the past year, the use of our digital resources has skyrocketed. So I'll talk about our apps, the programs that we've been doing. So, our story times, how we converted them virtually, what they're looking like now, what they will look like. And then our sort of outreach strategy for working with schools moving forward, which is still not completely clear, but there's been a lot of great work there. So 67th Street, Webster, which is 77th in New York, Yorkville. Yorkville is closed. So Yorkville is closed. It's not like Webster 67th, but 96th, and now a new branch on Roosevelt Island. So Webster 67th, 96th, and Roosevelt Island are all grab-and-go centers. And most, over 50 of New York Public Libraries are currently what we call grab-and-go, which is you can request a book to it. When you get the notification, you can pick it up, and you can also return materials. We're also, most branches are also, if you call ahead, printing out tax forms, which is always usually a big role that we help serve, which was a real big pain point for us because we're still not having people in the building outside of picking up a book, checking the book out, and returning items. We've completely waived any fees or fines on materials through at least June, and that's been since the pandemic. So if you checked out a book last March, there's no fees. So Webster 67th, 96th, and now the new branch on Roosevelt Island are all grab-and-go centers. That one was actually under construction for a few years and is now completely open. Yorkville is completely closed, so it's one of our remaining closed branches. And that is where we've been for a while, since about August, in terms of like physical space opening up. The leadership has been very safety-minded, and they've been very cautious. They have third-party consultants that they've helped look at the airflow. And so they've done a lot of different strategies, including putting us on a split schedule to reduce the people in the buildings and allow us like more time to create virtual programs. We don't know when we will open up for more in-person programs. We have no idea. The next phase, which they briefly tried to do before infection rates went up, was computer use and browsing. So when they do have the next phase, it'll likely be limited time browsing and computer use. So we don't know when that's going to happen. And we also do not know when Yorkville will become a grab and go. I hesitate to speculate, but currently we're grab and go. And I think everyone's eager to kind of go back, but the library is being very safe and really trying to, look at community need, and we want to respond to community, but they're also looking at, the librarians who go in the branch. So one of the things that the library has really done was really amp up their digital resources. So digital access to databases. There's a scan and delivery service, which is really useful if for research purposes you need an excerpt of a research document. So they really made that service a lot more accessible. And our app use has skyrocketed. So I'm going to throw out 5 apps right now, and I know it's a lot, so I'm totally happy to answer as many questions as needed. So Simply E and Libby are 2 of our great e-reader apps. So you can have audiobooks, ebooks, and Simply E is one that the library actually created. So we're really excited about that. Libby is also a great app, and it's basically for library fans. You might know about Overdrive, which is one like I've always loved. So Libby is essentially an upgraded, better Overdrive. So we're still supporting Overdrive, and Overdrive is still useful, but Libby is a sort of newer version. So these are all apps, just like any other app. Google Play Store, Apple Store, you download it, and then you can plug in your library card. So Overdrive is an older one, still absolutely supported. Very similarly, Cloud Library is also an older one, similarly supported. What's new and what's different is that a person, if they're in New York and they enable location services to do a quick check, they can get a library card via Simply E. If a person wants to come into the branch to get a card, that's one of the few services that we'll provide in person, because we really want to get people in and out of the branches to avoid any congestion. But we will make a library card. But if a person does not want to come into the branch, they can get a library card via Simply E and request physical books with that library card. The 5th useful app is a new one, and it's just NYPL. And the great thing about that is that you can actually check out books with that app. So normally, if you request a physical book, it arrives, you get your notification, your email or your phone call, you have to go to the self-checkout. And that can be a little frustrating. Maybe it's not scanning. So you could just take the book, take out the app and check it out yourself, which is great. And I think it's for long term, it'll be extremely helpful. You can also request books on that. So the first 4 are just great apps to have if you want to check out an ebook, audiobook. The NYPL app is more for just literally checking out physical materials and also just requesting and managing your NYPL account. So that's new, and that's one I hope is publicized more as the NYPL app. I think it's fantastic. So those are the apps, and they can be, I think they're really wonderful. We're definitely eager to get back to whatever new normal will be. We certainly have people in the building, but for now the apps are pretty great. Our programs. So we have tried really hard to create a lot of programs online, and we've had a ton of online story times. Recently, NYPL has started doing live story times. So if you go to an event listing and register, you'll get a link. They'll follow up with an email containing the link to join a Google Meet, and it'll be a live story time as opposed to a pre-recorded. But really, every program that we had before, we've tried to have virtual equivalents where we can. And so I'm going to just message the page from the NYPL website in the chat here. We can share that out. And this is where you can filter. So let's say you want to search for an adult program versus a child's program. But everything that we had before, whether it's story time, drag queen story time, an adult book club, we've tried to have the virtual equivalents. NYPL has been using Google Meet, and this is actually something that's been really interesting. Occasionally, there'll be teens or children from California who join, which is great. And I think what some of our messaging has been is and what's been great for us as librarians is I've been able to help out kids in Staten Island, and some of the kids who would normally come to our library have gone to Staten Island programs. So it's been great. And I would encourage everyone to check out, Brooklyn's been doing similar work. Queen's Library has been doing similar, like, so there's just been a lot of like really inventive, energizing online programs. It's definitely different. And this is something where I wanted to extend a big thank you and an immense gratitude, because a couple months back, there were a few sophomores from Eleanor Roosevelt talking about diversifying the narrative and their experience and sort of frustration that there wasn't more diversity in the text they were reading in school, in the curriculum. And so we have successfully started a book club, and today was actually our first meeting, which is pretty cool, pretty great. So it's called Diverse Teen Reads. We meet on the last Thursday of every month. It's just for teens, and it's me and Joe, who's the young adult librarian at Webster, and it's great. So we're switching off. One month we're doing nonfiction, one month we're doing fiction, and it doesn't directly address the concerns that Justin and Kristen brought, but it is, I think, overall like enabling, greater access to material. So that was like, I was so thrilled about that, and so I'm really I wanted to say thank you. But we have a ton of our children's librarians, and I'm biased because I love 67th Street because that's my branch, but our children's librarians have done a ton of work. Jacqueline in particular was really concerned that kids were getting burnt out and spending too much time like looking at screens. So she developed these programs. It would basically be essentially like picking up a book, but she'd have this activity list. So it was like STEM activities that weren't screen related. And she also does like great screen related activities. So if you filter on that page to 67th Street, you can kind of see our upcoming ones. And if you ever have any questions, you can email me. But the great thing about one of the silver linings is that you can attend, basically, you're not limited by geography. You don't have to worry about, is this something I can walk to or get to reasonably? You can attend a program in Staten Island. You can attend a program run by Queen's Library. So that's been one of the benefits. Another program that I just wanted to pitch is on Wednesday nights. This is not run by me. This is this is one of our children's librarians and two of our other staff members. It's like a Latinx book club. So it's someone from it's usually like a work from the Latinx experience. So it's pretty great. That's on Wednesday nights. And it's usually, I believe, in the middle of the month. And so I would just say, like, the programming, the problem with some of our programming is that there's so much and it can be a little overwhelming. So that's why I put the link in the chat. You can filter by age. And now filtering by borough used to be essential in sort of managing all the programs, but now I think it's worth looking through everything. So that's kind of where we are at our apps, a pitch for some of our programs with that link to the calendar and outreach strategy. So outreach it's been tough. At first, teachers were so swamped that when we would try to support them, they just had too much to do. And now I think everyone's had a chance to kind of catch their breath. And the first to really, I think, successfully help out virtually were some of our children's librarians. I think some of the elementary school teachers were really receptive, at least from our experience at 67th. So I think Jacqueline and Aime, our two children's librarians, were doing like a ton of online story times in conjunction with teachers. And now we have a few sort of larger meetings where they're really trying to aggressively develop a more formal strategy, because it's been sort of a lot of unofficial relationships prior to the pandemic where like someone knows someone so they can help a teacher out. But now we're trying to organize it. But like when we reopen, I don't exactly know what that'll look like in terms of supporting teachers. Previously, we did a ton of database tutorials, particularly with the schools at the Julie Richmond. So Vanguard High School, some of the teachers there were always tremendous supporters, and I would go there and they would come to the branch and we would do a lot of database tutorials. That's fallen off a bit, and I'm hoping we'll be able to kind of go back to where we were, where they were regular visits, and some of the most I like to think a lot of their research was done in the branch, and we did have a lot, but it's definitely fallen off. So it's kind of to be continued. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer as best I can.
Thank you. So I will open just a larger group, again, unless either of my co-chairs have immediate questions. You can raise your virtual hand if you have a question.
If no one else wants to jump in, I have a
I was
couple.
about to do that, so you go, Peter.
Okay. Thinking about how, I mean, you're already obviously have been over time and maybe even more recently collaborating with some of the schools. And I think it's great that you've, tied into the diversifier narrative. That's really pleasing and satisfying, both because it's really good intrinsically, and it's nice to know that, a session we had, just a month or two ago, is actually bearing fruit like that. A couple of areas of sort of particular interest to me. One is sort of the arena of career coaching. I don't know if you do anything along that line, helping,
That's a great question. So very quickly, that's one thing where sort of the main adult services pitched in, where they had a lot of like career coaches, resiliency coaching, which I didn't realize was like a particular aspect of that, but also like resume workshop, that was all transferred virtually. So those have been virtual programs and they'll continue to be. And I think our manager at the branch, Maggie, has said like that's something that we're definitely going to focus on. But all of that has been online. And that's another one where even if we don't necessarily offer it at a convenient time, another branch or the main adult services department definitely will.
Great.
Okay.
I'll jump in, and unless you had another one, Peter.
Well, let me just pick up on it just briefly. I did, in part, thinking about this session, and because I hadn't focused on it, I went to the NYPL website and I saw some of the career coaching sessions, and I actually got, logged in on one and got some good coaching.
All right. I'm happy to hear that. I'm really happy to hear that.
The other one, other theme that's of interest to me, and I don't know the extent to which, it fits or makes sense or what have you, but I'm a big fan of teaching and entrepreneurship for people even to think about, sort of, could be high school level, could even be before, what is business all about? What would it mean to start a business? How do you think about that? And then if I'm really going to be bold, which I probably should avoid, I do something which I call a 90-second MBA, which is here's what you'll learn in 2 years in the MBA, but it's in a more compact form.
Well, I mean, I could definitely talk to some of the adult librarians, and maybe even if we schedule something for the teens, I think that could be a great program. There's definitely from the young adults, like some of my colleagues, programs around like finance and sort of financial responsibility. And there's also more for the adults from the now it's associated with our main branch, which underwent a name change from Mid-Manhattan to Stavros Nartos. There's a business library there, and they have sort of like consulting hours where you can speak with a business librarian for like various questions, whether it's like copyright or how to start a business. And I think they have, I believe it's SCORE, which is like they help get mentors for small business. I don't know as much about that.
Well, that's really good. They're as you may be aware, they're people who've been active and successful in business. Often it's areas, it could be around finance, it could be around marketing, sort of how do you generate a little more revenue, what have you. But that's a really great set of programs.
Thank you. And I just really quick wanted to run through the apps one more time. So Simply E, so SIMPLYE is one of the main e-reader apps. And that was the one that was developed by New York Public Library. Libby, LIBBY, is another one. And that's That's nationwide. A lot of different public libraries use that vendor. LIBBY Libby is really good. And it's essentially sort of upgrade and improvement on Overdrive. So Overdrive, and that's just very much like it sounds, OVERDRIVE. That's like a classic one. I still use it. I like it. So if you like Libby, there's not much need for Overdrive. The last one for e-readers is called Cloud Library. That one's not as popular. The only reason I think it's still supported is because there's only like some titles are only available in that. I personally, and this is sort of a matter of opinion / debate, I encourage people to download as many as they can because there tends to be caps. Like you might only be able to make 3 requests on a given app. So I say just, get as many apps as you feel comfortable with. So those first 4, Simply E, Libby, Overdrive, Cloud Library. And the last one is NYPL. And that's more for just checking out the books and also like making requests on physical items. So that's like if you don't want to go to nypl.org, if you just want an app, NYPL is a great one. Also one I hope gets used a lot in the future because it saves people who come into the library a trip to go into the circulation desk. They can just check out themselves. And if you need a library card, the first one, Simply E, is where you can get a library card.
Great. So I had one question, and then I will turn it over to my fellow board member, Marco. So Jesse, you mentioned that obviously the use of the apps has skyrocketed in the pandemic. I'm curious if you have data, whether it be for your particular branch or for New York Public Library more broadly across the city, about a comparison in terms of, right, like the number of kids served in 2019 by the libraries versus like 2020. Like, have you been able to ascertain whether the children and young adults that you were serving in person before the pandemic have taken advantage of these virtual options, or whether you're actually just serving a totally new population, like you mentioned, some of which are like not even from New York?
It's a great question. I don't have like great data. I think in general, I mean, it must exist, and I can certainly follow up. I think one of the big issues is like trying to address the digital divide, and that's something that like the current president Tony Marks has like identified as like as a big issue. And so we had these a pretty good program of checking out like hotspots, like mobile hotspots, and I think they're gonna invest more in that. Because we saw like during the initial closures when no one really knew what was going on, they kept the internet on in a lot of branches, and they found that it was being used. Like people would go like outside just to use the internet that they kept on. So they're definitely, I don't know like what it's going to look like in terms of like how they address the digital divide. Part of the problem is like some of our like physical materials checkout system. Like if a person has a physical material account, it might not necessarily, in fact, it definitely doesn't show. We can't see what you check out digitally. So a long answer is I'm not entirely sure if we have data that shows we're serving the same constituents or new constituents. The data does show like a massive increase in the digital usage.
Makes sense.
And my concern, and I think a lot of staff concern, is that like people who don't have internet access, how we serve them. And I think that's going to be like a big push coming like in the future.
Thank you. We can unmute Marco Tamayo to ask his question.
Oh, thank you, Taina. Thank you, Peter. Oh, thank you, the best guy, Rami. First of all, I would like to say, make the library more accessible and reachable is a wonderful symptom for the society. I think I appreciate that, and thank you so much for that. And going with the pattern that Taina just said is, do you have any statistics about how this program performed, or how do you expect to perform this program?
Like in terms of our
The usage, I'm talking about the usage, and maybe I think this is the best time also to have probably to establish maybe by race, maybe by age, and that will be extremely helpful for to work out with something for those specific populations that do not have access. And that's, I think, is the most important part. And in that direction, I would like to see how is your perspective, so we can do something in that direction, because you need your help. And I think it's extremely valuable what you offer to the society. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it raises a lot of great points. I think most staff have had the sentiment that like the sort of frustration, and we think of it as like a tragedy, is like it's great that we've been able to offer like digital access, but you know, what about people who don't have internet or people who rely on us for their digital access? I'm thinking mainly of the people who come in for computer use. So I can look in. I don't have statistics on me at the moment.
Can you implement in that direction something? Because I think it will be extremely helpful for us to know what is the population that is more in need. Because not only is the library by itself, but the library need to reach as much people as we can. And the only way, since you have direct communication with the public, I think you are the right vehicle to go in that direction.
I can definitely find out in terms of like who's using our digital resources, like what that demographic makeup looks like, and then who's using our physical sources and what that demographic makeup looks like. Yeah, I can definitely, I can talk to my manager, and I can reach out to probably our book ops team would have access. I'm just going to make a quick note of that.
Thank you so much. I think it's extremely helpful for us and for you too, because the more people that have access, the better. Especially myself, I believe is especially for low-income communities. And I would like to know what is the location of those people. What is the location that more frequently use, and what is the location that less used, so we can target these kind of the actions. And so at the same time that you offer this regular service, that the traditional service that library does, we would like to have something more tangible, so we can work together in order to increase and help to educate the community, especially the children.
Thank you, Marco. Rami?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess one thing I do know, though, is in terms of New York Public Library, so this isn't including Brooklyn Public and Queens, Webster and 67th typically have, just in terms of physical materials, and this is just over the last year during the pandemic, just like during the grab and go, our physical materials have circulated a lot, like top 10 in the entire system. So I know that like here, the books are moving. People are requesting books and people are picking up books. But I'll definitely follow up with this great point and try and get more statistics about who's using the materials, like demographically, physically, and then who's using, get a better demographic of who's using our digital materials as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for creating that book club. I think that's going to be a definitely great addition to teen reading in the city, especially in our district. And my school is actually in the process of reviewing our English curriculum. So I'm going to send the team that's working on that to you, and hopefully I'll get them to join your book club.
That'd be great. We'd love that.
I met with them this morning. I'm like, oh, Jesse would have such a great time with these guys.
That'd be so. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. I went to Webster a couple days ago. Got myself a new library card. It was
all right.
Very easy. I logged onto Libby as soon as I got it. Super smooth. I'd like to thank you guys at NYPL for doing it, for making it.
Good to hear.
very easy, COVID-free, like not, I think I was in and out in like less than 5 minutes. So someone walked in with me to look for like the book they had on hold, and I was out faster than they were. So either they didn't know what they were doing, or the library card process was easy, or both. So that was really great.
Happy to hear it.
Yeah, so that's really all I have to say.
And Webster's a great example of a branch where I mean, I personally don't know how they would set it up to have in-person browsing in programs right now. It just wouldn't be safe because the initial opening, like the entryway, is quite narrow in the main floor. But it's a great branch. And the thing, like, my personal take, if you want to download another app, like, go for it. And if you want to get a Brooklyn library card and a Queens library card and set up accounts on Simply E in Brooklyn, and like, go for it. Like, I think the more access, the better. So
yeah, I have
encourage people.
Overdrive and Cloud and NYPL. I use that one a lot. One more thing, just as a plug, especially for Webster, our zoning and development committee's meeting again next month to discuss the Blood Center, and I think it would be really great to have library representation there, just because of the impact it might have on the library. So Max, I don't know if you know the date of that next meeting, but
I will look now.
yeah, but we had a meeting earlier this week on it. We had a lot of community participation. So I think the library is going to be really impacted by that project if it goes forward. So I'm sure either you or someone at the branch would like to speak on the impact.
Looks like April 27th.
Thank you, Max. Are there questions from others? Please raise your virtual hand if you have a question for Jesse or for any of us. I'll jump in and ask just one final question unless others have. So that anecdote you gave, Jesse, is sort of heartbreaking of just, in the beginning of the pandemic, folks actually using the internet outside of the libraries while it was still on. Was that happening, at the 67th Street Library and libraries in the community? I wonder if it was shut off, if there have been conversations about potentially, keeping that as a resource. I guess what I'm trying to get at is if people can't physically sit inside a library and access the internet, and the New York Public Library would have, under other circumstances, not in a pandemic, been paying for internet for people to access. I'm just curious why the decision was made to sort of turn that off, if people might have been able to use it, say, sitting outside a courtyard.
Oh, I think I may have misspoken. My
Okay.
understanding, the library intentionally kept it on, even though the branches were closed, because people would come outside. That's my understanding in conversation with another person, was that initially during the March and April last year, the library intentionally kept it on, and they saw that people were using it. I don't have any exact statistics on that, but I think it supports some of our past mobile hotspots programs where people could kind of check out this device for a mobile hotspot.
Okay, that's great to hear. Maybe I misheard. Jenny Hackett has her hand up.
Hi, hello. I just wanted to introduce myself. I live in the neighborhood, and I work for Cold Spring Harbor DNA Learning Center. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we are opening a very large learning center, DNA Learning Center in downtown Brooklyn this spring. We've been in the neighborhood a little bit before now in Harlem and one classroom in Brooklyn, but we just want to let anybody who partners with community groups that do education, that we have a lot of offerings. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate venue or how to let people know more about it, but I can let people know more and happy to share more.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, no, that's definitely the appropriate venue. If you want to put your email, send your email to the host, the Community Board 8 host. He will share that information with us, and I'm happy to reach out and get more information from you. Downtown
Great.
Brooklyn isn't really our district, but I'm happy to sort of share any research.
Right. We work throughout the city. So
Great.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Jenny.
Well,
Thank you.
Let me just ask, Jenny, could you share just a paragraph or two about what your focus thrust, what you're trying to make available?
Sure, thank you. So we started with Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory out on Long Island. So, one of the premier research institutions in the world, and they were the first to start sort of education for students in the 1980s. And we have a large learning center out in Cold Spring Harbor, but we're expanding throughout the New York City metro area. We already provide field trips for students. There's paid field trips, but also we provide first field trip free for all Title I public schools. This is middle school and high school level, 5th through 12th grade. In Brooklyn, we will have six lab classrooms where we can do field trips. 2 of them we're located in the City Tech, on the City Tech campus. We have a partnership with City Tech and the state to have us on their campus. And 2 of the classrooms will be partnering with City Tech and community college kids to do biotech education, working for an associate's degree there. We do a lot of student research sorts of things. So we have free programming in student research, community citizen science programs that are free. We have field trips in the summer, which they're mostly paid field trips where there's scholarships available. So there's basically we're just trying to partner with anybody who is interested in doing anything DNA, biotech related, with basically from 5th grade through community college and adults and citizen science. So
that's great. I may be a little past your target market, but I'm really glad to hear about that. I think that's a great service. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Are there any other questions for Jesse? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Jesse. We really appreciate you joining and appreciate your support, beyond tonight, but it was helpful. We hadn't had sort of a library specific meeting in a while. And so it was helpful to hear about all the great things that the public library continues to do. So we appreciate your partnership. We're here for you. We're really excited that you launched that book club, and we hope to continue partnering together.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I can't express enough gratitude for helping get the Diverse Reads Teen Book Club started. Really excited about that.
You may have some new members once Rami gets his hand.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'm gonna get my team to join.
And if I can put my email in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, and I'll try and get more specific statistics that address the other concern mentioned, and just send an email to you to follow up.
Thank you so much, Jesse. So I just wanted to open it if anyone has any new business that they would like to bring up before we close. All right, so unless my co-chairs, Peter or Rami, have anything to add, just wanted to make a plug again. Our next committee meeting will be on Thursday, April 22nd, and we have invited a senior member of the office of the new New York City Department of Education chancellor. And so we hope to have a robust conversation about the new chancellor's priorities and an update on how the reopening of schools is going and sort of what the vision is for the remainder of this academic school year and summer school and the fall. So really, we're, obviously I think we're all happy that the pandemic is sort of coming to an end, but there are just a lot of, still tough realities, especially for our schools. And especially in dealing with children, so many teachers vaccinated, but children, of course, not. So want to have a real conversation about sort of what the plan is. So hope you can join us on Thursday, April 22nd. And unless anyone else.
Jesse, appreciate it.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you next month.
That would be great. Thanks all.